This is the story of how the most exclusive social fortress in the British Empire was transformed into a devastating, highly public quarantine zone in the blink of an eye. In less than 24 hours, the pristine green lawns and heavily guarded turnstiles of the Royal Enclosure at Ascot transformed from the ultimate staging ground of Queen Camilla's aristocratic triumph into the undeniable proof of her absolute social containment. What transpired at the VIP gates of the world's most prestigious racing event was not a ticketing error or a minor logistical oversight. It was a cold, clinical execution of high society governance. What Camilla just realized, standing completely alone in the sovereign's viewing box as she watched her closest allies being physically turned away by security, is that the crown on her head cannot buy entry into the true bloodline hierarchy. When a queen consort's private network of fixers and family members is systematically blocked at the borders of the royal perimeter, it is never an accident. It is a calculated message, and the message delivered to her by Prince William was chillingly absolute. You do not control the guest list, you cannot manufacture elite status, and against the unyielding social architecture of the crown, you actually own absolutely nothing. In this video, we are going to unpack the secret social power grab that triggered one of the most ruthless internal containment strategies the modern monarchy has ever witnessed. We will examine the hidden paper trail Camilla created when she attempted to weaponize the Royal Ascot guest list, a desperate maneuver to grant permanent highest tier Royal Enclosure badges to her non-royal children, her elite public relations architects, and her private aristocratic network. We will look at exactly how Prince William, exercising his supreme authority over the sovereign's estates and patronages, uncovered her staggering exploitation of the crown's most exclusive social currency. Finally, we will break down the silent bureaucratic guillotine that severed her social influence the moment she attempted to flood the royal perimeter with her private shadow court. This is a masterclass in high-stakes institutional warfare, where the most devastating retaliations are delivered not through the press, but through a deactivated barcode scanner exposing a woman who just discovered that the illusion of supreme social authority is no match for the cold reality of a locked gate. To truly understand the sheer magnitude of this structural collapse, we must first look at the towering illusion of supremacy Camilla had spent 3 decades meticulously constructing. For 30 years, her entire trajectory was defined by a highly sophisticated, unyielding campaign to climb from the deep shadows of public scandal to the absolute apex of the British aristocracy. But her psychological objective was never merely about securing an invitation to the party, it was about owning the guest list entirely. Over the decades, we witnessed what appeared to be the systematic quiet erasure of Princess Diana's social legacy. Camilla oversaw the gradual replacement of traditional old guard courtiers with her own fiercely loyal media operatives, and she consistently pushed to elevate her non-royal children into the permanent VIP fabric of the court's highest society events. She operated under the profound, unwavering belief that because she held total control over the heart and decisions of King Charles, she inherently wielded the executive authority to dictate the social hierarchy of the crown itself. She mistook the king's personal devotion for an unyielding social blank check. Throughout the transition of the reign, she navigated her elevated position with a staggering level of confidence, building an empire of influence surrounded by an expensive public relations apparatus. This echo chamber convinced her that the old aristocratic guard had surrendered, that the institution was finally hers to reshape, and that she held the ultimate power to grant or deny access to the sovereign's inner circle. She felt completely secure, entirely failing to notice the silent seismic shift in social and administrative power happening right beneath her fascinator. The trigger for this unprecedented internal war occurred during the highly classified logistical preparations for the 2026 Royal Ascot. For centuries, the Royal Enclosure has stood as the ultimate impenetrable fortress of British high society, a sacred social perimeter where entry is strictly governed by the sovereign's representatives and the Ascot authority. Recognizing the inherent fragility of her position as a consort and facing the stark reality of the king's ongoing health vulnerabilities, Camilla was gripped by a sophisticated form of commercial and social desperation. She knew perfectly well that her ability to distribute social favors and the immense leverage she held over her elite allies was tied entirely to the lifetime of her husband. Driven by this survival panic, Camilla attempted a breathtaking secret administrative maneuver designed to secure a permanent, untouchable social fortress for her network before the window of opportunity slammed shut. Behind closed doors, she quietly directed her private office to submit a revised, highly confidential memorandum to the Ascot Authority and the master of the household. The paperwork contained an extraordinary set of demands. Camilla was attempting to formally requisition dozens of the highest tier Royal Enclosure badges, complete with unrestricted access to the sovereign's private dining rooms and the royal box itself. The intended recipients were not visiting dignitaries or working royals. They were her son, Tom Parker Bowles, her extended non-royal family, her closest public relations architects, and her private allies from the exclusive Garrett Club. It was a calculated, hostile takeover of the Crown's ultimate social real estate. Camilla fundamentally believed that if the paperwork claimed it was the King's direct wish, the vetting committees would simply rubber stamp the request, allowing her to permanently embed her private shadow court into the most exclusive gathering on the planet, creating a taxpayer-subsidized VIP network that operated independently of the royal bloodline. What Camilla fundamentally failed to anticipate was that the administrative machinery she sought to manipulate was already being forensically monitored by the ultimate gatekeepers of the Crown. While she was busy executing her strategy through the hospitality offices, Prince William was quietly protecting the perimeter. When William assumed his role as the Prince of Wales, he did not just inherit vast agricultural estates, he assumed a profound, overarching responsibility for the long-term integrity of the royal family's patronages and public-facing social perimeters. William is a man who carries the silent, enduring grief of his mother's public humiliation, coupled with a fierce, unwavering instinct to protect the future of the Crown for his wife, Catherine. Catherine has navigated the treacherous waters of British high society with uncomplaining sacrifice and flawless grace, never once demanding unauthorized VIP access or exploiting the Royal Enclosure to elevate her own extended family or private friends. William has watched this contrast for years and he has remembered everything. When Camilla's unauthorized badge requisitions bypassed the standard aristocratic vetting protocols and were routed for final printing, they triggered an immediate, highly classified administrative alert that landed directly on William's desk. Together with his senior advisors, he conducted a silent forensic audit of the Ascot guest logs. They uncovered the extensive metadata trail of Camilla's private office attempting to pressure the Ascot Authority under the guise of the King's health. They saw the staggering exploitation hidden within the seating charts and the precise, calculated attempt to cheapen the sovereign's highest social honours by distributing them as party favours to a private media network. The moral outrage within the bloodline was absolute. But in the upper echelons of the British Monarchy, you do not retaliate with emotional screaming matches or leaked tabloid stories. You retaliate with weaponized restraint. The execution of their revenge was completely silent, turning the very rules of high society etiquette into a clinical, inescapable quarantine. William did not confront his stepmother in the grand drawing rooms of Windsor Castle. He simply utilized his absolute authority over the royal estate's operational frameworks. A new internal directive was quietly issued to the Ascot Authority Security Command. William ordered the immediate and permanent revocation of every single unauthorized badge requested by the Queen Consort's office. He instructed that the strict historical vetting standards be aggressively enforced without exception. The trap snapped shut on the opening morning of Royal Ascot. Camilla had already arrived early in a state carriage, taking her position inside the heavily guarded royal box, fully expecting to look down upon the pristine lawns and see her meticulously assembled network of allies dominating the Royal Enclosure. But miles away at the main VIP turnstiles, a devastating scene was unfolding. Her son, her public relations fixers, and her elite club allies arrived in their finest morning suits and silk top hats, fully expecting to breeze through the security checkpoints. As they confidently handed their premium Royal Enclosure badges to the white-gloved attendants, the barcode scanners flashed a brilliant, unforgivable red. The digital clearances had been cleanly and permanently wiped from the main frame. There were no flashing police lights, and there was no dramatic shouting. There was only the devastating reality of a locked turnstile in full view of the global aristocracy. The specialized security personnel politely but firmly informed the Parker Bowles entourage that their badges had been administratively voided by the sovereign's estate, and they were entirely unauthorized to enter the Royal Enclosure. They were physically turned away at the gates, forced to walk back through the crowds of arriving guests entirely stripped of their social armor. Word of the high-profile rejection swept through the elite enclosures in a matter of minutes. Inside the royal box, a pale, isolated Camilla looked out over the crowds, realizing with a sickening dread that her people were completely missing from the event. The grand social empire had been dismantled before a single race had been run. As the panic of total institutional containment set in, she stepped away from the viewing balcony and reached for her encrypted mobile phone, desperate to demand that King Charles intervene, entirely unaware that the devastating silence waiting for her on the other end of the line would change the reading of absolutely everything. The heavy, encrypted mobile phone felt like ice against her ear as the secure line connected from the isolated tension of the royal box to the king's private study back at Windsor Castle. Surrounded by the old guard aristocracy, who were politely pretending not to notice the sudden, glaring absence of her private entourage, Camilla presented her grievances with the breathless, practiced urgency of a woman whose entire social fortress was suddenly in freefall. She laid out the humiliating scene at the main turnstiles, the deactivated barcode scanners, the elite public relations fixers forced to walk back through the civilian crowds, and the devastating administrative blockade orchestrated by Prince William. She demanded an immediate sovereign intervention. She fully expected King Charles to summon the Ascot Authority, overrule the Prince of Wales, and order security to manually override the gates, reinstating the premium Royal Enclosure badges she had so carefully mapped out for her non-royal bloodline. For 3 decades, this exact dynamic had been her ultimate safety net. Charles had fractured his relationship with the British public, fundamentally dismantled the institution's popularity during the 1990s, and absorbed immense global criticism, all to ensure she would one day wield the absolute executive power of a queen. She assumed that the threat of a high society scandal would force his hand. But that is where the narrative shifts completely, not because of a grand, dramatic argument across the secure line, but because of a devastating, unyielding silence. King Charles did not summon his aides to issue a royal countermand. He did not order the Ascot security commanders to unlock the turnstiles and allow her private media operatives inside. Instead, he met his wife's frantic demands with a heavy, agonizing exhaustion that carried the absolute weight of the monarchy's social and constitutional future. The king's silence was not a sign of a husband's indifference. It was the profound, calculated concession of a reigning monarch who had just been forced to face the harsh reality of his own shifting reign and his own vulnerabilities. Charles understands what Camilla refuses to accept. The survival of the House of Windsor no longer depends on placating the public relations operatives of the present, but on the unshakable, legally binding stability of the future, a future entirely managed by Prince William. By refusing to intervene, the king quietly validated the administrative guillotine that William had dropped. He signaled to the entire palace apparatus and to the elite aristocratic committees monitoring the Royal Enclosure that the true governing authority over the sovereign's social footprint had already transitioned to the Prince of Wales. Intervening to protect Camilla's private network now would mean declaring a public, institutional war against his own heir at the most highly publicized social event of the year, risking a catastrophic scandal over the exploitation of crown patronages. In that agonizingly quiet conversation, Charles chose the monarchy over her. He chose the historical integrity of the bloodline, and in doing so, he left Camilla standing in the royal box, facing the terrifying realization that her ultimate shield had just dissolved. This devastating silence exposes the raw, fragile underbelly of what can only be described as Camilla's profound commercial and social desperation. To the outside world, she wears the state jewels and rides down the Ascot racecourse in the lead carriage, creating the glittering illusion of absolute, impenetrable aristocratic wealth. But the cold, economic and constitutional reality of the British monarchy is that she actually owns nothing. She holds no independent royal wealth, and she possesses no inherent authority over the Crown Estates or the Ascot Authority. A permanent highest tier Royal Enclosure badge is not merely a ticket to watch a horse race. It is the ultimate state-funded luxury and administrative blank check that guarantees lifelong elite status, total social immunity, and seamless access to the highest echelons of global wealth and billionaire networking. Camilla knew that the moment King Charles is no longer on the throne, her institutional currency drops to absolute zero. She becomes entirely dependent on the social grace and favour of King William V. Her push to embed her aristocratic allies and non-royal children into the permanent VIP fabric of the state was born out of a suffocating awareness that her time at the top is strictly finite, and that without state-funded leverage, her expensive media loyalists would abandon her instantly. William's decision to execute a forensic audit and permanently strike those names from the guest list was a masterclass in institutional containment. He weaponized the etiquette and rules of high society to lay bare her vulnerability, revealing that without the explicit approval of the Prince of Wales, her personal empire is completely insolvent and socially quarantined. He proved that the sovereign's most exclusive perimeter cannot be held hostage by the ambitions of a shadow court. The deeper meaning behind this silent execution of revenge became highly visible as the carriages continued to arrive and the royal family took their places. The deactivated barcodes at the turnstiles were not just a ticketing glitch for Camilla's team, they were the ultimate visual representation of an institutional quarantine. As Camilla's borrowed social power evaporated, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, retained her rightful place with an effortless, quiet dominance. The contrast between the two women could not have been more stark, and the institution knows exactly who holds the true power over the royal guest lists. Catherine has never needed to submit unauthorized memorandums to the Ascot Authority to secure her extended family's social legacy. She does not need to smuggle private public relations fixes into the sovereign's dining rooms to project authority or maintain public relevance. Catherine herself commands the highest level of institutional respect, not through manipulation or paid media operatives, but because her power is rooted in uncomplaining sacrifice, flawless execution of duty, and the unshakable legitimacy of the sovereign bloodline. When Catherine steps out of her carriage and walks across the pristine lawns of Ascot, the crowds naturally part, and the global cameras capture the undeniable future of the institution. Her influence is authentic, earned through years of silent endurance and absolute loyalty to the crown. By ensuring that the social integrity of the monarchy remains untainted by Camilla's private overreach, William was doing more than protecting the Ascot ticketing system. He was offering a silent, devastating defense of his mother's legacy, proving that the true exclusivity of the institution belongs exclusively to the rightful heirs. For years, William has watched the quiet, systematic attempts to elevate Camilla's media network and aristocratic allies to the exact same visual and social status as the bloodline royals. By fiercely guarding the Royal Enclosure and invalidating the unauthorized VIP passes, William guaranteed that the prestige of the monarchy will be preserved. He ensured that Catherine and her children will never have to share their most highly sensitive social perimeters with a manufactured state-funded shadow court. It was not an act of petty vindictiveness. It was the ultimate silent restoration of order, executed through the undeniable permanence of institutional protocol. The subtle details of this shifting power were instantly recognized by the old guard aristocracy in attendance, elite club members, palace courtiers, and high society gatekeepers who possess an exquisite radar for where the true power lies, immediately understood the shift. The message was sent through the glaringly empty seats in the royal box and the locked turnstiles at the perimeter. Aligning with Camilla's private territorial ambitions is now a fast track to institutional exile. The crown protects its assets, its history, its social exclusivity, and its bloodline at all costs. Camilla believed that by outlasting her critics and securing the title of queen, she had achieved absolute permanent victory. She thought she had conquered the institution and secured the master keys to its ultimate social fortresses. But she failed to recognize that true royal authority cannot be taken by storm or secured through administrative tricks. It requires the deep foundational legitimacy of sovereign duty. As she stood in the quiet luxury of the viewing balcony, looking down at the crowds, where her dismantled shadow court was supposed to be the grand illusion, vanished completely. She may still wear the state jewels and ride in the carriages for now, but everyone inside the Royal Enclosure, and soon everyone in the world, knows the truth. The trap is snapped shut. The social borders of the estate have been permanently redrawn. The reign of the aristocratic shadow court has been entirely dismantled, leaving behind only the cold reality of a consort who was merely a temporary guest in a house she sought to rule, and the undeniable truth that the era of Prince William has already begun. Thank you for exploring this deep dive into the hidden power dynamics and high society battles of the British monarchy. If you found this forensic analysis compelling, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment below with your thoughts on Prince William's decisive administrative retaliation. Your engagement helps us continue to uncover the unspoken truths behind the palace walls.